Alright, welcome back, guys. We'll carry on from where we stopped or where we left off in our HTML video. This is our very first video on CSS, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be styling our HTML document using CSS. Okay, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using an internal style sheet. There are several other ways to style your HTML document using CSS, and as we progress further we'll begin to explore those other options. Okay, but first off, let's just start off with the internal style sheets. Okay, first thing you do, this is our web page, this is our web session, and if you have been following our HTML series you'll be familiar with this already. We created an header or an heading for sports session, and we put a paragraph beneath it, and we created also a heading for football, and we put a paragraph beneath it. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be styling this portion, that is our sport section, our heading, and of course the paragraph. Okay, so let's get right to it. The first thing you do is to create an HTML declaration that says that this is a style sheet. I will explain what I mean shortly. Okay, first of all, this is an HTML document, and you put it inside your angle bracket. Okay, you simply write style inside your angle bracket. This is our opening tag for style, and this is our closing tag for style. The difference is the backslash. Okay, so what we are telling our browser is everything we put or we embed inside this style tag is going to be a CSS or a cascading style sheets document. Okay, so we are putting, and that is why it's called an internal style sheet, because we are putting our CSS document inside our HTML document. Okay, and like I said before, there are several other ways. There's the inline style sheets, and of course there's the external style sheets. Don't bother yourself about those yet. We'll get to it as we move on in our subsequent videos. We'll explore those, and we'll be using the external style sheets more, which is actually a separate document from the HTML document. But what your style sheet does is you'll be able to use your style sheet to style your HTML without actually affecting your HTML documents or changing or altering your HTML document. So let's get right to it. First off, we're going to give a background to our sports section, and we use selectors when you are creating the CSS rule for your HTML document. And the selector for our sports section here is our H1. Okay, so sports section, the text sports section or the heading sports section is embedded in our H1. So our H1 becomes our selector, and it is a type selector. As we move further, we'll explain what selectors are in more details, but just follow on. First off, you type your H1 and you put your squiggly bracket. So that's the major difference between CSS and HTML. Whereas in HTML you use your angle brackets, in CSS you use your squiggly bracket, which is I just highlighted in blue. So you put your squiggly bracket immediately after your H1 selector. This is our selector here, your H1, and what you are telling your browser is style our H1 here, which is our first heading. Style our first heading to whatever we specify, or whatever CSS rule or property we specify in here. Okay, so we're going to be giving it a background color, and the CSS property for background color is simply background hyphen color, and you put your colon. So this will then create the value. This is now specifying, after your colon you specify your value, and the value is gray, and you end that with your semicolon. Your semicolon tells your browser that this is where my CSS rule for background color ends. Okay, your semicolon, it states that this is where my CSS rule ends. So what we have done here is we have created a background color and I've given it the value gray. So this entire work here, CSS document here, is called our CSS rule. Our background color is the CSS property, and our value, this gray here, is our value. And of course you close it off with your squiggly brackets. Okay, so you have an opening squiggly brackets and then you have a closing squiggly brackets. Okay, so without much ado, we're just going to save this up, and notice when we hit refresh, you will see a change here. We'll just refresh, and as you can see, our spot section, the background behind it is gray, is now gray. Okay, so one more thing, we're going to be styling also the body of our HTML, and this body tag right here is also a type selector, and we're going to be styling the body of our HTML, and it is the entire background of our HTML. And how to do that is simply the same procedure. You simply just type body. So we are now calling our body selector, and we're styling against the entire body of our HTML, and we're also going to give it a background color. Background hyphen color, and we'll use a different color now. Let's say light blue. Okay, so let me just expand this a bit so you can see what I'm doing. Let's say light blue, and you close that, you end that off with your semicolon, and you close it off with your squiggly brackets. Okay, so we have created a CSS rule now for the body of our HTML documents. Okay, and what this does is it will change the entire background of our web browser to light blue. So we are going to, so we're going to minimize this, and we'll hit refresh here, and you'll see that our background color here will change. Just remember, just to reiterate, we have put everything inside our style tag, and this style tag here is not a CSS document, is an HTML document referencing to the CSS document within here. So this entire body of work that we have done for our background color and our H1 is the CSS document. And if you notice, we put all of our CSS code, including the style HTML tag, inside our header, just beneath the title tags. Okay, so I just thought you noticed that. So we are going to save this up, and we'll come here and hit refresh, and as you can see, the background of our document is now blue. Okay, if we expand that, is now blue. Okay, and let's resize that a bit so we can see everything. Okay, what we're going to do next is we're going to change the font color for our paragraphs to blue also. And how you do that is, you guessed it, with your P selector. And how do we arrive at this P selector? Remember that our paragraphs are embedded inside the P tags, so our P tag becomes our selector. Okay, and we are going to be styling against the P tag. You simply put your squiggly brackets, you type color, and you say, wait a minute, why not font color or text color? I don't know why they made it that way, but in CSS, when you are styling against your text, or you want to give a value to your text, or you want to change the look and feel of your text, in terms of color, it is simply, you just write color. It's not text color or font color, but it's just color. And I just want you to bear that in mind. That's the CSS property for styling and giving it a color. Okay, and we're going to give it a value blue. We end that off with our semicolon. It tells our browser that this is where our a value for this particular property ends, and we'll close that off with our squiggly bracket. And you notice we have two paragraphs here. This is the first paragraph and this is the second paragraph. And as we go further, we'll start to talk about ID attributes and class attributes. But because we have not specified any particular paragraph that we want to style, our CSS will go ahead and style the first p tag and the second p tag. But as we go further, I will show you how to style individual tags, okay, or individual elements separately. So we are going to save this up and we'll hit refresh here, and as you can see, our paragraph is now blue. Okay, the color for our paragraph is now blue, and we can do a lot more. We can increase the size of our fonts for our paragraph. We can do that as well, and you guessed it, the value for the property for increasing the size is simply font hyphen size. Okay, we are going to make this, let's say 20 pixels. We want to make it a little bigger. Mind you, pixels is simply represented with px, and that is the standard unit of measurements for that the internet uses for web browser. So it's the standard unit of measurement and is in pixels. Okay, so you would notice that you can put in as many CSS rules. You can use as many CSS rules for a particular type selector. Okay, so let's just save this up and we hit refresh. Notice that when we hit refresh, this size, the size of our fonts or our text for the paragraphs would increase. So we'll just refresh this, and as you can see, they have increased considerably to from around 14 or 16 pixels to about 20 pixels. Okay, so we are winding down now for this particular introductory video on CSS. Okay, our first coding class, and I want to leave you with a bit of assignment. It's quite easy. I want you to style our h2 and give it a background color of gray or whatever color that you would prefer. Okay, so our h2, I want you to style it and give it your own color, that whichever color you would want to give it. Okay, you should just follow the example that we have worked with here. Let's create a bit of room here. Okay, follow the examples that we have worked with and style our h2, which is our football section, and give it a background color of gray or any other color that you'd prefer. So that should do it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you are following, guys. As always, we'll see you in our next class.